Hello everybody and welcome back to the Virtual Racing Compound Porsche Super Cup. We are here at the Oulton Park circuit just outside Little Budworth for round 7 of the championship, the penultimate round. So once again, following the standard format, a 15-minute sprint race followed by a 25-minute feature race, but with the championship slowly getting closer and closer, we are in for one brilliant fight towards the final 2 rounds of the championship. Once again, you join myself, Jack Werrell, in the commentary box to run you through all of the highlights. And Oulton Park, one of those circuits, it is an absolute hallmark of British motorsport. The British Touring Car Championship come here, the British GT Championship come here, and all of which produce some brilliant racing through what is a very, very balanced circuit. There's plenty of high speed, sort of high energy corners, as well as some low speed chicanes, lots of elevation change, and lots for the drivers to overcome. So please do join me throughout all of the highlights from round 7 of the championship. So the drivers taking to the grid now for the first time this evening, and we will see how they line up. So Matthew Forrest takes pole position at 1:34.621 is the pole time, almost 4 tenths clear of Nicholas Cacato, sat there in second place. Host Schoolge and Chris Roberts make up row 2 of the grid. Row 3 is Remco Barlow and Pete Plasto. Then it's Matt Sisler, Lee Tucker, Chris Pio, Stephen Orrell, Javier Perna and Craig Thompson in 12th. And the final driver, Timothy van der Broek, starting in 13th place. We'll have to keep an eye on Nicholas Cacato and Chris Roberts, of course, tied for second place in the championship. Already Nicholas Cacato has got the jump on him, sat there in second place, a full row in front of Chris Roberts. So just waiting for the final few drivers to take to the circuit. Nicholas Cacato, Remco Barlow, Matt Sisler and TVDB at the back of the grid. And very shortly, we will be getting underway for the first time here this evening. So the drivers revving away, and there we go. We do go racing here for the first time here at Oulton Park. It's Matthew Forrest getting a great start already, thrusting himself in towards turn 1. Chris Roberts might be able to work his way up into 3rd place. Yes, he has. He's managed to get past Host Schoolge on the exit of turn 1, so it's all fairly clean through sector 1 for the moment. Downhill we go, grabbing the apex nice and late, and Matthew Forrest in that clean air, he's got to focus forward 100%, forget that his rearview mirror exists, and just proceed to charge forward and try and leave the cars behind. Nicholas Cacato already slowly starting to fall into the clutches of Chris Roberts, who has Host Schoolge all over his tail, and then it's pretty much just a train of nose to tail all the way back to Javier Perna. Timothy van der Broek didn't take to the grid. So we do have 12 runners here at Oulton Park this week. Nicholas Cacato still sat there in second place, falling away ever more from Matthew Forrest. Chris Roberts not too far adrift, and now you can see in the background Remco Barlow filling the mirrors of Host Schoolge. A quick jink out there, just a little look in towards the chicane, letting him know that he's there and his intentions are to move forward. But at the moment, it seems like a one by one train all the way around the sector. We'll keep an eye on the other drivers, but at the moment I've got a feeling Chris Roberts is going to be gunning for that second place, and of course if he can finish in front of Nicholas Cacato, that means further points for him, and that means they will no longer be tied on points, and he should be able to join his Virtual Racing Compound teammate Pete Plasto up towards the top of the championship standings. But that will all be decided. It looks like not the greatest final sector from Chris Roberts. He has fallen away slightly from Nicholas Cacato. It might have even been the other way around. Nicholas Cacato went quicker than anybody else, in theory, through that final sector. So he was really starting to push forward. He has closed that gap visibly to Matthew Forrest, and then we get into the section of the circuit where maybe he's not quite as strong, using all of the exit curve. Chris Roberts, a big flick of oversteer on the exit. He did manage to get the moment collected up. I don't think he lost too much time, but in the background now, Remco Barlow looking up the inside of Host Schoolge. It won't work through there. In towards the Shell Oils hairpin. And once again, nice and defensive was Host Schoolge, making sure that car is hugging the inside line, which ensured him to remain in that position. But for the moment, we are slowly starting to see a pack form. That's 5-6 cars for the lead, in theory. Matt Sisler almost bridging the gap. And then from 8th down to 11th, where we see Stephen Orrell. We've had Lee Tucker return to the pit lane. But for the moment, we are seeing 2 packs form, and it's all going off at the head pack, because now we can see while Remco Barlow was trying to attack Host Schoolge, he's taken his eye off his rearview mirror, and now Pete Plasto is trying to work his way in towards the top 5. All will play out over the next, 13, 12 minutes. So So down in towards turn 3 we go. Flick of oversteer there, very well collected up from host Skulj, the Slovenian, but it does mean he will have lost a lot of mid-corner momentum. That has allowed Remco Barlow to work his way through. Pete Plasto followed the same line, and host Skulj down now from 4th to 6th. Pete Plasto is now in towards the top 5, pushing for 4th place. The top 3 are still remaining in similar positions, but so far it has been a brilliant start to the race for Matthew Forrest. It's good to see he's had some bad luck throughout the championship, but it's nice to see, fingers crossed, it's slowly starting to flow back in his direction. 1.2 seconds clear, 1.6 seconds clear, pardon me, from Nicholas Cacato. Then we get back to Chris Roberts in 3rd. Remco Barlow under lots and lots of pressure now from Pete Plasto. He's really trying to work his way by. Through Knickerbrook we go, and then up the hill. It looks like Pete Plasto is going to get this move done in towards Druids if he's brave enough on the brakes that time through. No, he's not. He was a little bit too far back, I think, as well. But can he get a good run on the exit? Over the crest they go, and then it'll be hard on the brakes for the penultimate corner. Can he get it done there? No, not quite. Again, he's just awaiting him. I think keep applying that pressure and a mistake will come. And there it is. Remco Barlow, lots of oversteer on the exit, just lit up the rear of the car. And I think there was a little bit of contact there between Pete Plasto, just trying to desperately get by. So Pete up into 4th place. Host Skulj up into 5th. And Remco Barlow now back down into 6th place. So it was just that waiting game that we mentioned. Now, Craig Thompson, he's trying to get by Chris Pio. He's got Matt Sisseler just sat behind, so at the moment he is the meat in the Apex Tech sandwich. In towards sector 2 now. Craig Thompson, he's got to decide where he's going to sort of apply his intentions, because obviously you want to work forward, but if you do that you leave yourself vulnerable from attack behind, and you want to defend from the car behind, but then the car in front will pull away. So Craig Thompson, he's got a very, very busy job here and deciding what he's going to do, but at the moment it looks like he's going to focus on defence. Matt Sisseler is getting closer, but quite a narrow circuit is Oulton Park, so catching up is one thing, but then overtaking, you've really got to commit to the overtake if you're going to do it. You can see nice and early looking up the inside in towards the chicane, decided a little bit too far back this time, but at the moment, with 6 minutes of the race gone, it's only going to get closer. So now really close on the tail end of Chris Pio is Craig Thompson, and he's going straight on. Has he had some sort of a hardware failure? The brakes are working. You can see him desperately locking the brakes, trying to get the car slowed down. Very well avoided from Matt Sisseler. But Craig Thompson now down in towards 11th place. I'm not 100% sure what happened. Maybe his wheel disconnected or some sort of hardware issue for just a brief moment in time. Arguably one of the most important sections of the circuit. And he was desperately trying to get the car slowed down. Did so in such a manner so there were no further incidents. But Matt Sisseler lost a little bit of time, but he is still running in 8th place. Then it was Javier Perno inherited 9th. Stephen Orrell now up into 10th. And Craig Thompson down into 11th. So on to the final lap of the race now. Go the lead pack. Chris Roberts still just about fending off his teammate Pete Plasto for 3rd place. But joining the party is host Skulj. So definitely getting closer. Definitely applying that pressure, and you can see Pete Plasto can really see the Apex Tech car getting closer, and he's desperately trying to work his way by, but obviously he doesn't want to compromise himself and his teammate and potentially lose 2 places here. So through the left-hand kink we go, in towards Shell Oil's hairpin. We've still got Matthew Forrest leading the way, 4 seconds to the good now over Nicholas Cacato, so if everything stays as is, Nicholas will secure 2nd place in the championship over Chris Roberts. Pete Plasto will still be leading the championship. Through the Britain chicane we go. And Chris Roberts, not the greatest run on the exit. It looks like Pete Plasto got a very good launch off the corner. And in towards the 2nd chicane, they will be side by side in towards the braking zone. It's going to be very, very tight on the way through, but Chris Roberts does manage to hold on to that place. Jumping on the brakes there was host Skulj, just to avoid any contact with the car in front. Remco Barlow not too far adrift, so if it all goes wrong, he will be the big winner out of this. But Chris Roberts is now safe somewhat for 3rd place. No major pressure from behind anymore, only a couple of corners to go, and it looks like it has opened up. But towards the line for the final time comes Matthew Forrest to take the first win of the evening. 10 laps completed, and he led from light to flag. 5.2 seconds to the good when he crossed the line. Nicholas Cacato will take 2nd place. It will be Chris Roberts That secures the final step on the podium. And it's Peter Plastow, followed by host Skulge and Remco Barlow in 6th place. Chris Pio, a little bit of contact with his teammate there, Matt Sisseler, heading in towards the final corner. So the two Apex Tech cars, it's going to be a drag race to the line. Really starting to defend was Chris Pio. No team rules here. Chris Pio does secure 7th place. Matt Sisseler crosses the line in 8th place. Javier Perna in 9th, followed by Craig Thompson. And Stephen Orrell working his way through the final couple of corners now to take what will be 11th place. And we've already had Lee Tucker cross the line to finish in 12th. So we'll see how that leaves us from the with the results. So you can see there, Matthew Forrest takes to the top step of the podium, 5.2 seconds clear of Nicholas Cacato. Chris Roberts takes the final step on the podium, 8.3 seconds away from his teammate. Then we go back to Pete Plastow in 4th, host Skulge 5th, Remco Barlow in 6th, Chris Pio in 7th, followed by Matt Sisseler. Javier Perna and Craig Thompson rounds out your top 10. Then it was Stephen Orrell, the last of your finishers on the lead lap. Lee Tucker 3 laps down after an early incident in the race, and Timothy van der Broek didn't take to the grid. So that is how Heat 1 went. We do have Heat 2, the feature race, the 25-minute feature race on the way for you. And as per the usual, I'm sure we will have lots more action on the way. So after what was a very enthralling race 1, we do have race 2 on the way for you now. You can see the grid is slowly working their way into position. Javier Perna and now our pole sitter Craig Thompson on the front row of the grid. The grid is as follows. Craig Thompson lines up on pole position with Javier Perna alongside. Then it's Matt Sisseler, Chris Pio, Remco Barlow, host Skulge, Pete Plastow, Chris Roberts, Nicholas Cacato and Matthew Forrest. Of course, the top 10 finishes from race 1 are reversed, which does make the grid for race 2. I think that is everybody all lined up and ready. So you can hear the revs slowly starting to rise. The driver's getting ready, a jump start potentially from Javier Perna, but the lights are on now. Craig Thompson will decide when he wants to go. There we go. So the lights go out now. Not a great start from the number 9 machine of Chris Pio in the background, and he swipes across Pete Plastow. So championship leader in the wall. I think Matt Sisseler got caught up in that one as well, but at the moment it's still Craig Thompson leading the way ahead of Javier Perna. Remco Barlow sat there in 3rd place. Host Skulge currently in 4th, and Chris Roberts up to 5th place after starting in 7th. So already 2 places gained. Of course, he doesn't have to worry about Pete Plastow, his teammate, anymore. But at the moment, Craig Thompson still leading the way and slowly edging away, dare I say, this early on. It looks like he's got a little bit of breathing room, no major pressure from Javier Perna in 2nd place. Remco Barlow, I think, is taking up the honours of that, really starting to apply the pressure onto the Argentinian driver. Host Skulge, this Slovenian, just sat behind in 4th place, almost there at the podium. Chris Roberts there in 5th, working his way through the chicane, bouncing the car over the curbs. We'll see whether anybody has got back going. Yes, the very heavily damaged Chris Pio and Pete Plastow with heavy damage on that car. And yes, it was indeed Matt Sisseler that got caught up in that one as well. Of course, we saw Chris Pio not getting the greatest of starts, and I think then in his eagerness to sort of get back going again, dumped the clutch. And as soon as he let that clutch go, the rear axle of the car lit up and just rotated the car across the grid. It's a very easy mistake to make, dare I say. I think I've done it a few times as well. But at the moment, Craig Thompson still leading the way, still extending that lead margin. 8.5 tenths clear of Javier Perna. Remco Barlow still sat there in 3rd place, trying to work his way into 2nd, but he can't focus too much because host Skulge is all over his tail in that Apex Tech machine in 4th place. Coming across the line for the first time here in the feature race, it is Craig Thompson still leading the way, and that battle for the final few steps on the podium really starting to hot up. See Matthew Forrest looking up the inside of his teammate. He makes contact with Chris Roberts. Chris, does he get it slowed down right back across the road into Matthew Forrest? Not 100% sure how that came about, but we will have another look back at that. So on the exit of turn 3, in theory, down towards the Shell Oils hairpin, cutting across the nose goes Nicholas Cacato, and can't decide whether that was Chris Roberts moving over or Matthew Forrest, or a little bit of both. But Chris Roberts ended up very deep in the barrier. He does manage to get the car going again, but that really isn't what you want to see between the teammates. Matthew Forrest continues on. We'll be able to see the damage on the front end of that car. Nothing major, potentially affecting the front end aerodynamics slightly, but we'll see how the race plays out with that damage. But at the moment, Chris Roberts limping that car around, trying to make the most. It looks like he's got away with it, though. Not too much damage on that car. I think very minor aerodynamic difficulties, and of course Chris maybe won't be able to see that from the inside of the car, so he will be just pushing the limits again, trying to find where that damage is, if any, and seeing how that will affect the car's performance. So from his cockpit, he won't be able to see too much on the car side, so we'll have to be careful just to see, or just be feeling it out, seeing where the damage may be. Matt Sisler, it says he's in first place, but I think he's right the way down in what would be 12th place at the moment. We're just waiting for him to cross the line again, which will, of course, refresh the timing. But Craig Thompson is leading the way and is still in front of Javier Perna, who is still under pressure from Remco Barlow in second place, or in third place, pardon me, but he does have Host Skulj all over his tail, really starting to push forward now. Down the hill we go. Nicholas Kakato isn't too far adrift. He is looking to work his way forward a little bit further as well, but sideways in the middle of the road goes Remco Barlow. He flicks the car one way, flicks the car the other, and he does end up in the infield. I think just where the compression is at the bottom of the hill caught Remco Barlow out, lit up that rear axle, and it spun him across the road. Making contact with him was Host Skulj. A little bit of damage on the front end of that car now. Matthew Forrest up into fourth place. He worked his way past Nicholas Kakato there, I think, in the antics of that little incident, but Javier Perna has got a little bit of breathing room, a little bit more than he did have in second place. Host Skulj still trying to push forward, albeit now for second place, and Matthew Forrest trying to get on towards that podium. Nicholas Kakato still sat there in fifth place. It's been a dream race from him so far, of course, miles in front of his championship rival Chris Roberts. He is, after race one, secure in second place after outscoring Chris. But for the moment, it's looking like a VRC sort of walkover, because Craig Thompson really starting to extend that margin, but look how close Host Skulj is now to that second place, to the point Javier Perna is really having to go defensive and think about how he's driving that car around the Oulton Park circuit. It's now three cars all fighting over the final two steps of the podium. Matthew Forrest, after getting caught up in that incident with his teammate a little earlier on, he's really started to turn that mindset around and pushing forward well and truly, trying to get onto the podium. You can see that damage on the front end of the car not really affecting the turn-in. The car was almost complaining of too much grip there on the entry to turn one. Down the hill we go, looking almost around the outside there for Matthew Forrest. Braking as late as possible, grabbing a nice late apex. He will have the draft assistance all the way down towards the Shell Oils hairpin. Of course, there is the kink in between here and there. There's the left kinked. Very much a one-way affair. Can he do anything on the brakes? He has a look, but Javier Perna goes defensive. So too does Host Skulj. So let's check back in with our leader here. He is Craig Thompson, still leading the way. Matthew Forrest, his teammate, in second place after an earlier issue for Javier Perna. In towards the final corner goes Craig Thompson for what will be the ninth time. Rotates the car on the exit, locks everything up in desperation to get the car stopped. But that does now mean Matthew Forrest is leading the race. Nicholas Kakato in second place. It's all gone wrong for Craig Thompson, desperately trying to get all 510 horsepower off the grass. Back onto the tarmac he goes, with his teammate just behind now, Chris Roberts, who does work his way in front. So Craig Thompson from the lead of the race, he was leading the race for the best part of 15 minutes as well. Wide on the exit of turn one goes his teammate Chris Roberts, but Craig Thompson now down into sixth place. So in towards the final couple of corners for the final time comes our race leader Matthew Forrest. So 15 laps completed, 25 minutes completed as well. Matthew Forrest crosses the line to take the top step of the podium ahead of Nicholas Kakato and Chris Roberts a little bit further behind. Nothing really decided to take away our attentions in the final few minutes of the race. Chris Roberts will come across the line to round out your podium ahead of Craig Thompson in fourth place. Good recovery after an unfortunate incident, dropping him away from the lead. Lee Tucker will cross the line in fifth, and Javier Perna through the final corner now over Dialeep to finish in sixth. Stephen Orrell under pressure from Pete Plasto through the final corner. Towards Dialeep they will go, and Stephen Orrell goes wide, leaves that inside open, but it will be seventh place for Stephen Orrell. Pete Plasto crossing the line in eighth place. Championship leader, not a great night from himself. Chris Pio will finish in ninth place, and Remco Barlow just on the exit of Druids, underneath the bridge he will go, and then in towards the final couple of corners will go the number 5 WPR racing machine. Very sideways on the exit, and Remco Barlow will cross the line to round out your top 10. A little bit further back is Matt Sisler in the final of the finishes here in the feature race. Round 7 of the championship, of course, here at Oulton Park. And round 8, only a couple of weeks away, and that is where the championship will be decided. Matt Sisseler crosses the line to finish in 11th place, your 11th and final finisher. We will see how that shows up. Matthew Forrest does indeed win the race, 1.1 seconds clear ahead of Nicholas Cacato. And it's Chris Roberts in 3rd place ahead of Craig Thompson. So a good night all round in theory from Virtual Racing Compound. Good points indeed. Lee Tucker will finish in 5th ahead of Javier Perna, Stephen Orrell, Pete Blasto, Chris Pio, Remco Barlow and Matt Sisseler, the final of your finishers. Host schools retiring halfway through the race, and Timothy van der Broek unfortunately not taking part this evening. But this was all of the highlights from round 7 of the Virtual Racing Compound Porsche Super Cup. A brilliant night of racing indeed. There was lots of action throughout. So join me in a couple of weeks' time for the highlights from round 8 of the championship.